Thank you very much, Leroy, for those inspirational remarks, and also for your service to all of us, our military, and our veterans. Well, a lot has happened in California in the last 4 years: a pandemic, wildfires, drought, epic winter. Life in California is pretty exciting, and it keeps us all on our toes. I'd like to call on CalChamber President CEO Jennifer Barrera, who will kick off a conversation with California's Chief Executive. This Chief Executive continues to bring to his responsibilities a lot of energy and knack for tapping into the innovative and resilient California spirit. His commitment to the long-term well-being of our state is clear and much appreciated. Please welcome, for a breakfast chat, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Morning, everybody. Good morning. All right. Well, we are on the wrong side of the agenda after Master Sergeant's comments.
We certainly are.
Yeah.
We certainly are.
God bless, man.
Yes, that was inspirational and lovely. Thank you so much, Governor, for being here with us this morning and taking time to address the business community of California. We
Pleasure.
really appreciate it. Thank you. There's, of course, always something going on here in California, and so I'm going to kind of skip around on different topics, if you'll indulge me a little this morning, and jump around. But to get right into it, our budget.
Yeah.
Last week, you presented the May revise to the budget, and as predicted and projected, we are in a budget deficit this year, which is quite a swing from where we were last year.
Yeah.
So if you could just talk to us a little bit about how we got here, given last year's amazing and unprecedented surplus, and also what was music to my ears and to the business community's ears is during your budget press conference, you indicated that you would not support any increased taxes in order to deal with the deficit, which was obviously important to the business community.
Well, I appreciate it. Unless you really want to pay more taxes, then So, a couple things. You know, it is remarkable. I think, let me just punctuate a point you just made. $101.4 billion, $101.4 billion is the current fiscal year's operating surplus that we are governing under. The prior year was $76.3 billion, $177.7 billion over a 2-year period of operating surpluses. That does not include the $27 billion that came from the federal government 2 years ago. Put that in perspective. That's larger than most states' budgets. It's unprecedented in U.S. history, the surplus that you have produced and that we are all the beneficiaries of here in the state of California. The idea that in the middle of the fiscal year that we would promote because of a modest shortfall that we can more than address because of the restraint and in the spirit of the Master Sergeant, the resiliency of this state by increasing taxes and commensurately, as was proposed, increase ongoing spending would be a very serious mistake. And that needed to be addressed immediately in terms of not only pushing back against that proposal, but reminding people that, of the old days. We don't want to go back to the old days. You don't need to be, and I'm a proud Democrat, but you don't need to be profligate to be progressive. Because of our restraints, because of that resiliency, because we paid down debt, we have historic reserves. We utilize those one-time surpluses overwhelmingly for one-time investments. We're able to pull back some of those one-time investments, and we're able to secure the commitments we did make over the long term in a way that creates the one thing I think we're all after, and that is some more confidence and less uncertainty in terms of our fate and future and the investments, particularly of those of you here assembled and those you represent all across this state. So California is a remarkable state, on our way to be the 4th largest economy in the world, 3.3 trillion last year. The new projections, there'll be two of them. The first report came out, $3.59 trillion a year economy, closing the gap, with all due respect, eat your heart out, Germany. Soon to be now the fourth largest economy in the world. 2 years ago, 7.8% GDP growth. Texas, an anemic 5.6. California's GDP growth, if you look over the last decade, is faster than most Western democracies. California continues to dominate in every critical category. And I have all the confidence in the world, the best is yet to come, meaning those that feel like California is our fate somehow is not as strong and vibrant as it's been in the past. I think there's more than ample evidence to suggest otherwise, and more than happy to discuss that further this morning.
Absolutely. Well, another piece, thank you for addressing that, another piece of your budget that also was very appealing and exciting to the business community was your comments about expediting projects here in California, getting out of our own way when we're building things, and addressing the backlog that we have with regards to permitting and even, as you heard maybe earlier, CEQA litigation that we have going on here in California. Can you give us a little more information on that?
Well, we've made a lot of, quiet progress. I've signed 20 CEQA bills in the last 4 years. Last year, significantly, what we did in the housing space, something we've been talking about for decades here in Sacramento. And I think all of us deserve a real round of applause on that, because people came together across their differences. We did things that couldn't, quote unquote, be done. The legislature did a magnificent job trying to balance those interests, and we were able to carry that across the finish line. Now, that's in the housing space, more still to do in that space. But the regulatory thickets and the uncertainty in this space are legendary, not just here in the state of California, but across this country. And I'm very pleased to hear about the reforms that are being promoted across the nation, particularly in relationship to the current conversations in Washington, D.C. But I'm also mindful we have more to do here in the States. So tomorrow, we've been working on this for years. We will be putting out the most ambitious streamlining and permitting and judicial reforms in our state in a half century. And we have an organized effort that's bringing people along. It's been stubborn, it's been hard, but this is a profound moment. If we can deliver on this promise, we have $180 billion, $180 billion that we'll be investing in infrastructure projects in the next 10 years in this state. And even in adjusted dollars, that's one of the most significant investments in California's history. And the only thing that gets in the way is the world we invented. And that's process and delay and manipulation. And so we have to address that, create certainty in the markets, allows us not only to provide more ample confidence in terms of the private sector's investment in this space to build more partnership, but also allows us to get more federal dollars and draw down even more money as it relates to those competitive grants. So that's a preview. Tomorrow, mid-morning, we'll be laying out in detail these reforms with an extraordinary coalition. And I'll tell you, if we get nothing else done in the next 3 years, this may be among the most consequential things if we can actually deliver it.
Remarkable. Okay, switching topics a little bit, kind of, because it's in the budget, but also kind of broader than the budget. I would suggest California has set some very bold climate goals with regards to carbon neutrality, reducing our emissions. 2045 is really our target year to kind of achieve a lot of that. What is the pathway to get there? What does that include? Are we going all solar? Are we going all wind?
No.
Does it include hydrogen? Carbon capture, is that a part of it?
We answer that question in detail. We've moved away from ambition, not application implementation. So we put together what they refer to as a scoping plan, invested millions and millions of dollars, thousands of hours to lay out a framework to, in detail and nuance, to answer that question across the spectrum. So yes, it's green hydrogen, it's carbon capture, it is all of the above, everything you mentioned, including perhaps the most consequential, and that's battery storage. Our largest plant, so to speak, our biggest output from megawatt perspective is battery storage right now. It's even larger than our nuclear plant, 4,000 megawatts. Just a few years ago, it was a few hundred megawatts in the battery storage space. We dominate the globe in battery storage. I was down at an old plant down in Paramount, California just a few weeks ago, World Energy. There, because of CARB and the scoping plan and our framework of focus on renewables and the low carbon fuel standard, of which we have led the nation and the world in, we were able to establish a framework for renewables in the aviation space. And as a consequence, we're converting old industrial facilities now to large bio-green facilities, hydrogen and other, and now creating thousands of jobs, billions of dollars of investment. That transition, it's a long way of saying, is happening in real time. We're manifesting. And I'll just remind you, we have 6 times more green collar jobs than we do fossil fuel jobs already. 27% of the nation's green jobs are already in the state of California. You want to be big, you got to be big in big things. It's the biggest transformation in our lifetime. California wants to dominate this transition. 55 manufactured headquarter companies just in the electric vehicle space here in the state of California. You saw Elon Musk. Where'd he come back? To the state of California just recently. Brought his R&D center back to the state of California because we dominate in this space. It's one of our biggest exports. This is California's, this is the one thing that I think separates our game from the game played almost anywhere else, and it's one of the greatest economic opportunities of our lifetime. So I'm really proud of the work we've done in this space. I'm proud that we have a plan and we're executing on that plan. $8.9 billion in this year's budget, specifically for electric vehicle transition. And you're seeing with this policy the acceleration of investment that's unprecedented in our state's history and in our nation's history because of the support now as well coming from the federal government, those $369 billion in the IRA. And I want to give the Biden administration a lot of credit for holding the line in terms of advancing those investments against the backdrop of all the opposition. And I'm very, very encouraged about California's leadership in this space.
What would you say is our biggest challenge to getting to that goal, any that you see along the way?
I just, lacking ambition, confidence, permitting. I mean, the permitting issue is foundational.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way we can achieve these audacious goals. And in so many ways, the inspiration for a lot of the permitting reforms we'll be advancing tomorrow come from our frustration and our capacity to even, hold up these solar projects and move them forward. Against the backdrop, again, of just the absurdity of the abuses we're seeing in the permitting and CEQA process. And so I think foundationally that's it. The federal government, I mean, you've seen the billions and billions of dollars that's flowing in the United States of America now because of the IRA and the work the Biden administration's doing. I'll be candid with you, and I know it's not in the spirit of our last speaker, but if Kevin McCarthy has his way, that's going to set us back. That's an answer to your question. McCarthy. I mean, what he's promoting would have a devastating impact on our progress. Period. Full stop. And so we've got to push through that, and we've got to continue to maintain our leadership. And one of the things I'm most proud of is we're not asserting anymore. We're proving that paradigm. Low carbon, green growth, 7.8% GDP. And I say that as a point of pride and point of consideration as well. Major Sergeant made a great point a moment ago about greatness is all around us, but we often don't feel that way here in California because we're nothing but a mirror of our consistent thoughts. And whatever we focus on, we tend to find more of. And you're not focusing on the greatness of this state as often as you're focusing on what's wrong with this state, and I understand that. And none of us are naive about that. And we beat ourselves up as much as you beat ourselves up in terms of the issues of affordability and housing as the original sin, and the byproducts of that as relates to what's happening in the streets and sidewalks, particularly encampments, and addressing forthrightly the issue of homelessness, which, by the way, we didn't cut a dollar from our homeless budget, $15.3 billion this year, with accountability attached to this, not just ambition and investment attached to our strategies and plans. But what I'm proud of in this state is that we still dominate in every major category. We're the #1 manufacturing state in the United States of America. We are the #1 ag state, the #1 hunting state, forestry jobs, #1 in two-way trade, #1 in direct foreign trade. more startups in this state, 51%. You look back to 2000, just last 2 decades, over half of the venture capital still coming out of the state of California. More unicorns coming in the state of California. Just wait for what you'll hear very shortly coming from Disney, coming back to California. This is a remarkable state, our home state, the golden state. And the next few decades will be a golden era of California if we maintain our wits, maintain our confidence, and continue to accelerate our nation-leading policies.
Well, let me just say, I've obviously heard you speak many times, and one of the things that you and I absolutely agree on is the value and the asset of our higher education system here in California. It's remarkable. Our community colleges, our Cal States, and our UCs are unmatched anywhere else.
That's right.
Can you speak a little bit about that, obviously in the budget with your funding towards them in the budget, but also just what that provides with regards to this transition we're going in the energy space, to our workforce, to the innovation of California?
Well, I don't think higher ed is an establishment plot. And I say that because some governors do think higher education is some establishment plot. And they're not making investments like we are in the state of California. The UC, CSU, community college, that's a conveyor belt for talent. There is no economic development strategy without a workforce development strategy. The reason we have more scientists, engineers, researchers, more Nobel laureates, more patents than any other state in America, no one comes close, is because of that system of higher education. What it needed was more predictability, and we needed to increase our investments. When I got here, that was not the case. We said a year and a half ago that we were going to commit, regardless of the progressive nature of our tax policy, the rise and fall of our tax revenue, legendary in this state, that we were going to commit to a partnership, what we called for achievement, a memorandum of understanding that would certify a level of commitment. We wanted better throughput. We wanted more graduation. We wanted faster graduation rates, wanted a framework on issues of equity. We wanted to establish the first statewide graduation goal. We didn't even have one. And we did all that, but we said in return, we're going to provide predictability regardless of budgetary constraints, 5% annual compounded increases in investments in the system. And that's exactly the commitment we made and the promise we made, and we fulfilled that in the proposal that I put in front of the legislature. That allows the UC, CSUs more predictable investments and continue their transformation, not just reforms in certain areas in terms of their system. I'm really proud of that, and I think that's foundational to our work. Accordingly, it's also foundational that we're more inclusive and we're more aggressive in terms of getting more people, including more Californians into our UC and CSU system, of which we've also significantly invested, including, by the way, areas where we had an increase in the budget despite the deficit, was getting more UC slots for California students, which I announced last week as well. So across the spectrum, it's a point of deep pride. And, I say all this because I was down there at New College in Florida the other day, and I've just seen the dismantling of higher education across this country. I've seen people out there promoting education reform that says you can't say this, you can't do that, criminalizing teachers, banning books. That's not reform. I'll tell you what reform looks like: creating a brand new grade, TK for all in California, getting $1.9 billion of your money invested in 3.5 million college savings accounts for every kindergartner enter our K12 education system. It's the billions of dollars. By the way, this is what we're doing on K12 education transformation. I don't know why it's gotten so little attention. Remember Arnold Schwarzenegger was out there, and I appreciated it, talking about after school for all? We never came close to delivering on that. We fully funded it this year. After school for all, summer school for all, reimagining the school year, not for an agrarian era, but for the new hyper-competitive era that we're in, 9 hours a day. We did that in this last few budgets, and we're in the process of implementing it, getting mental health professionals back into our public schools, wellness centers. Today, we're announcing, advancing on that effort. By the way, $750 million is going out today in competitive grants under this Community Schools Initiative, which is also part of our reforms. It's a point of contrast and pride. Again, in the spirit of focusing on what's right, not just what's wrong. And if I may, as a point of personal privilege, I think it's really interesting because you don't see this on the news, ever. I don't care what network you're watching. On health, wealth, and on education, California outperformed the national average in the last 4 years. You think, well, hold on, they shut down this economy in California. Well, you know, our economy contracted at a lower rate than the national average, at a lower rate than Texas and Florida in 2020. Contracted at a less rate. We grew at a faster rate in 2021. On wealth, we outperformed in the last few years. On health, just consider Florida as a point of contrast, 58% higher death rate than the state of California as it relates to COVID death rate. And you say, well, hold on. They kept their schools open, so they outperformed us education. Turns out that's just completely made up. Look at the facts. They just came out with a 4th grade reading, 4th grade math, 8th grade reading, 8th grade math. We outperformed in learning loss. Emphasis loss, no one's naive. California outperformed not only the national average, in every category, we outperformed Florida. Okay, we tied in 4th grade reading. In every category, health, wealth, education. Florida has 28% higher homicide rates than California. You wouldn't believe that. Jacksonville, Florida, same size as San Francisco, twice the murder rate as San Francisco. I say all this not to emphasize what's wrong with the state of Florida in a defensive posture, he says. But to emphasize a bias that I think is starting to form and a lack of confidence that I hear so often from so many Californians, so many of my friends saying, what's happened to California? And I say, I know, it's amazing, right? Elon coming back and how great we're growing. And they say, oh, no. Everybody's leaving. I'm like, well, if everybody's left, I mean, what happened to those 18 other states that lost a little population? Well, that's a third of the population. State like New York. What happened to Rhode Island? Well, they lost a higher percentage population. Pennsylvania. What happened to all those red states? My point is, I hope we can just buck up a little bit. I love this state, and I love what was just said about this notion, you know, that all of us are leaders, all of us have the capacity to flow with the forces of life, this notion of citizenship. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to be active participants in the life of our city, our state, and our nation, the world we're trying to build. And part of being active and not inert is being participatory, not only in terms of expressing doubt and anxiety, but also building on our strengths and trying to build a sense of well-being again in California. And it's, I'll tell you, the hardest, Jennifer, thing for me, because I'm the future ex-governor. I recognize that's happening in just a couple of years. Some of you wanted it to happen sooner. I'm sorry about that and the recall. But I love this damn state, my core of my bones. I love this state. We're a cause. Our values matter. We're the tentpole shore of the American economy in terms of jobs and economic output. But moreover, we're an essential state. And our values they matter at a time when rights are being rolled back in real time, freedoms are being rolled back in real time. Voting rights, civil rights, LGBT rights, abortion rights, women. We matter. And so for me, this is a cause. And my cause, I hold it dear because I can't legislate pride. I can't do a special session on spirit. It's got to manifest. And I recognize, humbly, I recognize my role and responsibility in this state. But I also recognize the state of this state is pretty damn special. And, I can't make up for 20 years of neglect on housing or 50 years on homelessness. But we can take responsibility to own it together and to set a course and policies to get us back on the right path. And I'm just telling you with some, pride. I'm really proud of the work the legislature's done the last few years, the work we've done, the fact that we have maintained a resilience posture, the fact that we're not having tax conversations. We may have conversations in the corners, but they're not real conversations. The fact that we can weather a $31.5 billion shortfall without significant disruption. The fact that we continue to maintain leadership in so many areas. So forgive the long-windedness in terms of the response, and I didn't even answer your damn question. Willie Brown taught me well. But anyway, Team California.
One final question.
Yes.
I will leave it at this, which is actually something that's incredibly important to me. I know it's incredibly important to the first partner. It's incredibly important to you as well. You just talked about equity, inclusion. Women leaders in California.
I mean, women rule. The men should be applauding, not the women. It's just advice. Yeah.
What can the business community do more to help elevate our women leaders and create equity in the workplace?
I love that. Well, family friendly. Women, family friendly workplace policies. It's not even complicated. I mean, childcare, like education, is economic development. Transparency and pay. Look, I want to thank, by the way, thank you. California Chamber of Commerce signed an equal pay pledge. You signed that voluntarily. 100 other businesses have as well, by the way, in cities. Women's Caucus led that. My wife worked with you. Thank you for doing that. I mean, that's a no-brainer. But we still have these extraordinary gaps. I know Joel Peterson and some of my Republican friends don't believe in it, but the data bears out 77 cents for every dollar women are being paid in this nation versus, the male counterparts. In California, it's a little better, 88 cents. Right. We've done a lot in terms of transparency on salary ranges. First state in the country to do that. That's mattered. I know a lot of folks didn't like it, but I'm really proud of it. The fact that we're saying, women should be on boards. I mean, imagine that. They are the majority. And you've seen 2x since 2018. Last 5 years, we've seen double. It was 15.5% in 2018 of women on boards. Now it's 33%. We're getting there. Still not where it needs to be. There's no state in America where more women own businesses than California, or co-owned businesses. 36% now. I mean, and we haven't even getting started. I mean, if you're into growth, forget inclusion. If you're into growth and success, if you're in trying to reconcile so many of these stubborn, frustrating, sort of hierarchical things around power and dominance and aggression, and enter a world of empathy, care, and collaboration, then affirmatively moving in the direction this chamber's moved and a lot of you have moved, boy, that is a no-brainer. And I'm glad we say about this state, the future happens here first. We're America's coming attraction. And it is a deep point of pride that we believe in inclusivity. We believe we're all better off, and we're all better off. We don't believe in talking down to people, past people. We don't believe in bullying people. We don't believe in threatening free speech. We don't believe in criminalizing those that disagree with us or love people that look differently. Whatever it is, this state is a universal state. We practice pluralism, and we think in the construct of the world we're living in today, those become essential values, and that foundationally, I think, will lead to stronger economic output and stronger vibrancy and resiliency in a world that we're trying to build. So thank you for your leadership in terms of gender equality, and thank you, all of you, for leading in this space as well.
Governor, what a privilege this morning. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
And thank you to the chamber. Thank you, everybody. Take care.